Views presented jointly with the Yisrael Hayom Daily is Yesh Atid parliament member and number 2 on its list, Major General Reserves Orna Barbivai, the first woman in the IDF to ever hold that top rank. And also joining us as usual, Ariel Kahana, the diplomatic correspondent for Israel Hayom. Orna, thanks for joining us. Well, let's take a look at what I just said. It's been a successful campaign in the polls for Yesh Atid, but when you hear an announcement like Bennett today raises the question, even if Yesh Atid is the #1 opposition party, how could Yair Lapid form a coalition in which he would be the leader?
Thank you for the question. I think that the issue is not the campaign. The question is, how do we want this country to look in the next few years, and whether the citizens are happy with what's happening today. The citizens that we meet on a daily basis, we see gaps in health, in economy that collapsed, in the education for the kids who sit at home. We need a change. By the way, the one who is really criticizing is Bennett. Bennett criticizes Netanyahu. Therefore, it's very strange to me that on the one hand, he says, I'm not going to sit under Lapid, and today he has 3 seats, and we are with 18, the largest party in the opposition. On the other hand, he doesn't say yes or no to Netanyahu. At the end of the day, the political campaign is less interesting. What's interesting is how do we create a reality where Yesh Atid, which is a definite alternative to the government, wants finally to bring some sanity and to create normalcy in the life of citizens.
So you're saying the political, or the politics is less interesting, but for us, we are journalists, politics is very interesting. The main question, the way I see it, I think Calev will...
Okay. I'm saying it's less important.
Okay. The question, I think the question is whether Lapid would give up being a prime minister for establishing a coalition with Saar or with Bennett as prime ministers for taking Netanyahu out from Balfour.
Look, we are not at the elections. You already talked to me about giving up. The very short history, if you remember, in the last 4 campaigns, Yesh Atid is the only one that proves that it stands with its promises. Everything that we committed at. You remember Yair gave up the rotation with guns. He understood that this big thing is going to change reality in Israel. I'm not sure that this is what we need, but we have to focus on how a bigger Yesh Atid, how it creates the cluster, because today already we have more seats out of a wish to change reality, and therefore now to say who's going to give up or not, it's just not the right thing. The public should know that if you want a change, this is an opportunity to vote in a democratic country and finally to put its trust widely in order to ensure that Yesh Atid gets the mandate to make change. Otherwise, people are going to vote to whatever they want. It's a democratic country. But they'll find themselves a day later again with the same Netanyahu, with the same way of management, with the same government.
The way to move Netanyahu is having a coalition for you, for Yesh Atid, Yair Lapid, with the Haredim, with Saar, and with Bennett. Those are the numbers. I think everybody would agree about it. But the Haredim won't sit under Lapid as prime minister. And therefore, the solution, I think, again, many would agree, is that it has to be someone from the right, either Saar or Bennett as prime minister.
I don't agree to that. I don't agree. I think that life taught us that we are saying that they can sit with us, whoever we define that the state is important to him as a Zionist democratic Jewish state. In that respect, we don't disqualify. Of course, Ben Gvir, on the one hand, yes, and anybody who supports terror. But factually, I think that the moment that Yesh Atid is going to continue this vector in which it is today, the capability to show to the public, and most of the people want to live with liberal values. I think that the ultra-Orthodox will also make a search, soul search, to decide either they want to isolate themselves or be part. I think that the coronavirus exposed a lot of failures, and I think there's a great effort to make in order to connect one law for the citizens of the state, and finally we're going to start dealing with things. 2 years, there's no budget.
So you would not give the Haredim what Netanyahu is giving them? And in all aspects, I mean, in Chok HaGiyus or budgets.
We are very clear in our positions. We have a definite platform, and we do what we say. When we talk about the enlisting law, we say that if half of the youngsters are not enlisted to the government, to the army, the chief of staff knows exactly what he's saying, and I was the head of the manpower directorate. We have to arrange that. The enlisting. What about national service? National service to Arabs. It's like we're not counting them. And that's intolerable in a democratic country. And I think that if Yesh Atid sees itself as a government party, it has to speak to all populations in Israel and create a reality whereby we change, enable joint life with the benefit of the society, looking ahead to the future, the demographic trends and the core studies in school. The Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox have to understand that essential. How we're going to deal with a deficit of 160 billion shekel that Netanyahu is leaving. We have to move the economy to create unemployment for self-employed. The politicians will have to ask themselves whether they want to perpetuate the situation or to make a change. And in that, I call upon all the parties to come with Yesh Atid and to lead Israel to sanity and normalcy.
Orna, I think the positions of Yesh Atid on these issues we've discussed, these domestic political issues on religion and state, are pretty clear. But I think the public is a little more uncertain when it comes to the issues that we define broadly as peace and security, where Yesh Atid stands, where it stands on the Palestinian issue, something that is more relevant now, of course, with the Biden administration, whether Yesh Atid is more to the left or to the right, how firmly it stands for a two-state solution, especially with your background. Explain to us, what is Yesh Atid's position there?
Yesh
Atid, as a central party, declared its position. The interest of Israel is separate from the Palestinians. We think that we need the two-state solutions that's recommended. The fact that Netanyahu in the last few years caused damage to the foreign relations, even with the United States, he preferred one party on another. This is not the way he should have done with the Americans. It's going to take time now to base the trust, although I think that there is an understanding of the Israeli interest. We have to create some sort of a regional conference that deals with the entire region. There will not be unilateral withdrawal. We have to come to understanding, because we want to make Israel Jewish democratic state. It's important to separate from Palestinians, not at all costs. I come from security, and I know that we have to secure the state in a way that we enable people to live where they live in a very safe way. But you cannot have the political issue just thrown aside. You cannot really zigzag like Netanyahu did. First he said yes, annexation, then he said no annexation. I think it has to be serious and to bring to the agenda a political arrangement that is, first of all, good for the Israeli interest.
Foreign relations, and I wonder, do you think your leader, Yair Lapid, could achieve such a great achievement? I think internationally it's recognized, to make Israel the first country in the world to get the vaccine, because we know very well that Netanyahu, in his abilities, in his ties, in his ambition, he brought this achievement to Israel. Do you think Lapid, that he's not that famous in the world, could have done that?
Of course, we could have done. Look, I think that the vaccines are a wonderful thing. I call upon people to vaccinate. We must eradicate this pandemic. I'm not sure that Corona is going to pass from the world. We have to live with it. And there's a habit to Netanyahu to always show part of the thing and not all of it. And we as a public, we judge the way the decisions are made. Can you explain to me why 30 years they're going to?
That's a different issue. But Pfizer CEO knows who Netanyahu is. He doesn't know who Lapid is, and sometimes that makes a difference.
לא, אי אפשר שבגלל...
No, but you cannot, that because of a certain edge, you give up other things. Transparency, the trust of the people, the fact that now they use extreme elements against the public because the public doesn't believe the government. The coronavirus is a political issue today. People are saying that the coronavirus is handled politically, including some ministers. So I think to say that the vaccines are good, I'm saying, here you are. They're very good and efficient, but you cannot just suffice with that. You cannot just suffice with that, but to destroy the economy, to walk in the street, to see people collapsing.
You would have done it better. Lapid would handle this crisis better than Germany, than the UK, than Belgium, than... You've no doubt. Okay.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I think that the experience, Rivik, look at our delegation. Lapid was a minister himself in the past.
For 2 years,
and he proved himself. People were worried that he succeeded too much. That's why he left. But I think the capabilities of Lapid and everything that Yesh Atid, we can finally bring some sanity to this.
I want to shift focus for a minute. You broke new ground as a woman in the Israeli military. You're now in politics. You're number 2 in a party, but we have a reality in which there is only one major party with a woman at the head. It's the Labour Party. Having entered politics, how do you see the role as woman of women in this? And do you think that you're going to see what's going to come first, a woman as the head of the Israeli military or as the next Israeli prime minister?
I think that women should be everywhere, in the army and in politics. Unfortunately, there are not enough, neither in the army nor in the politics. I think we are 30 lawmakers out of 120, but we are 50% of the population. I think the important thing is that when young women look at us, heading the struggle of the young soldier girls who want to do everything in the army, and I think that the Supreme Court will do well if they decide to open 100% of the professions in the army. Women should be in economy, in politics. There's no reason whatsoever that women with their capabilities will be, their representation will be less in all aspects of life.
I'm sorry, though.
We have 1 minute for...
No, I'm afraid we're going to have to... Next time, and I'm sure there'll be further discussions with it. I want to thank Orna Barbivai, of the Major General in the Reserves, but of course now on number 2 in the Yesh Atid and member of the Israeli Parliament, of course, and Ariel Kahana, diplomatic correspondent of Israel. Thank you for joining us on the program.